So, political compass tests. Generally, I don't think it's a great way to kind of gauge what side you're on. Generally, because a lot of these don't necessarily work properly, I'll say. Like, especially for someone like me, who takes like almost a postmodern style approach to the way we structure things. If I hear something that's ambiguous, I try to deconstruct it a little bit, and that's probably not what they want you to do. But when you're talking about politics, you're inherently talking about philosophy, right? Politics is an extension of philosophy. So if you have like any political sway of any kind, that's also a philosophical sway. Does that make sense? Hopefully I'm making sense to y'all. All right, so before taking the test, please note, I wonder how many people read this. Hopefully all of them, but I know how the internet works. Please note that this isn't a survey and these aren't questions, they're propositions. To question the logic of individual ones that irritate you is to miss the point. Some propositions are extreme and some are moderate. That's how we can show whether you lean towards extremism or moderation on the compass. Your responses should not be overthought. Some of them are intentionally vague. Their purpose is to trigger reactions in the mind, measuring feelings and prejudices rather than detailed opinions on policy. So, all right. Don't think too hard, it says, which is kind of a silly way to do things, but all right. Just a few propositions to start with concerning, no less, how you see the country and the world. Okay, here we go. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Strongly agree. Absolutely. We humans are the ones that live on the planet, and no matter what the US government tries to tell me, transnational corporations are not people. They do not live on the planet. So, yeah. I'd always support my country, whether it was right or wrong. Fuck no. And if you do, you're an idiot. You should only support causes that you agree are good. End of story. I love America. It's a great fucking country, okay? Love it. Love America, right? But if it started just murdering people in the Middle East, something I'm sure never happened, right? Will never happen, okay? I wouldn't agree with that. And I wouldn't be less patriotic for disagreeing with that. I would be more patriotic for saying that that thing that we're doing is bad and we shouldn't do it because we're a better country. So, strongly disagree on that one. I would not be supporting my country. No, strongly disagree. No one chooses their country of birth, so it is foolish to be proud of it. I don't know about that. Foolish, maybe, but I feel like it's a natural human thing. So I'm gonna agree, but like slightly, because you don't choose where you're born. You know what I mean? So unless you have the ability to move to a country, or if you were the founder of a country, the country itself isn't the thing that you should be proud of. You should be proud of the community that exists inside the country and the community you build for yourself, right? The people around you that work together in that country. Like, I live in Nowhereville, West Virginia right now, right? Not a real place, okay? Just bullshitting you, okay? But I live in nowhere, right? Nowhere important. So with that, I can say I'm proud of America, but I haven't met most of America. I don't know most of America. I've never been to California, for example. So I can't say I'm proud of all of America. I can just say that what we've done together so far has been pretty good, right? But I can say that I'm proud of my contributions and the contributions of my community to that whole. And I think if everybody does that and focuses more locally, you'll have a better, more agreeable system. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. See, but this, again, all right, so instantly we're like, no? What? Fuck no? But, okay, it's not saying, like, it doesn't specify human races. So if I was like to break this down and compare it to like, well, race could mean the human race versus the dolphin race or the elephant race. And then of course I would agree with that we would have many superior qualities. We're like dominant, right? But of course, when they're saying race, they mean like interhuman races, like black people, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, so on and so forth, right? So again, I'm trying not to like dig too much, but you kind of have to, right? So strongly disagree. I don't think this isn't fucking D&D. We don't have like racial modifiers. Sorry. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I'm disagreeing with that one, because no, what? I mean, you can use them. They're not, so like, I'm breaking it down too much, I know, but using the enemy of your enemy in an intelligent way. So for example, the Trump stuff. I'm not a fan of Trump, so if DeSantis is running, he and Trump battling back and forth could split Republican voter bases, right? And if that happens, then I'm happy that Ron DeSantis ran. That's good. It's a good thing. But I don't fucking like him, right? And I think that's what it's getting at, that you should enjoy the enemy of your enemy regardless of what else. So I'm going to strongly disagree with that one. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Well, okay. I mean, I don't generally think that, but I don't know all international laws. So, like, I strongly disagree that it's not justifiable to break international law. But I don't know the code enough to say that there might be an example somewhere outside of it where maybe there's an insufficient code for one thing or another. You know what I mean? But I'm going to say no, I disagree with that. You shouldn't be breaking international law generally. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I don't know about worrying, which is like the key term there. There does seem to be a fusion of both. This channel is a fusion of both, but I don't necessarily think that that means that it is bad, right? Like, I can be entertaining and laugh and play video games and bullshit, right? But it doesn't mean that the ideas and concepts that I'm conveying to you are less valuable as long as you pick up on them, right? That's part of just general video essaying, right? So I'm going to disagree, strongly disagree, maybe. I'm somewhere in between, but I don't think that the fusion is a bad thing. I think it's prevalent. I think it exists, right? But I don't think it's bad. Now, the economy. We're talking attitudes here, not the FTSE index. Okay, all right, fair enough. People are ultimately divided more by class than nationality. Strongly agree with that one. You can look at like just all sorts of things like that. Like, for example, there's a UFC fighter, right? I'm into MMA. UFC fighter, Molly McCann, has this workout video where she's got a shirt that says "Eat the Rich," right? And I guarantee I have more in common with Molly McCann, who lives in, I believe, England. I think she's English. Pretty sure. Gotta look that up now. Molly Meatball McCann. The English. Okay, I was right. Guarantee she and I could sit down and have a conversation better than me and Kanye West, for example, could have a conversation. So I 100% agree. People are more divided by class than by nationality. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Yes, strongly agree with that. Generally speaking, your unemployment rate, if it hits about 5%, is healthy for an economy, right? That's where we want to keep it, somewhere around 5. And in this country, it's been in between 3 and 5% for a long time. But the issue is that people, like, if you look at these things by themselves, look at unemployment, for example, it doesn't count underemployment, just people that don't have a job. So if inflation is going up, but your unemployment number is low and well controlled, it means that people can have multiple jobs to get to that level. And that, I think we can all agree, is bad. Having to have multiple jobs to be able to do anything with your life, that seems bad. So to me, it seems way more important, not necessarily to end inflation, because inflation's important for like a country's economic growth, for the GDP and whatnot to go up. So inflation is necessary, but hyperinflation is bad. So unemployment shouldn't be a big deal. We should have a net to catch people that slip through, right? You know, unemployment compensation, food stamps, things like that. But as long as we can control the more than just inflation, the difference between wage and inflation, if we can shrink that to as low as possible so that wages track with inflation, that's perfect. That's where you want it to be. Of course, all of this is under a capitalist styled system. So because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Strongly agree with that one. Holy fuck, dude. Holy fuck. I mean, take, for example, how BP knew that climate change was real. Or it was Exxon, sorry. ExxonMobil knew back in the day, I think it was in like the 80s, that climate change was happening. They saw the scientific papers, they knew it was happening, but they started posting propaganda everywhere to make it out like gas paid no additional effort towards that. There was no like increase alongside carbon, because they know they burn carbon, they do it, and they're trying to get you to buy cars that do it, right? So if we're talking about all this carbon burning and that's what's causing global warming, we've got problems. So they started by pushing propaganda that would say, no, climate change isn't happening. And then slowly, as they went on, they said, well, I mean, it's happening, but it's not carbon related. Until eventually they said, well, now it's happening, but now we're trying to build electric cars and you can buy our electric cars. How does that sound? So yeah, it's clear that corporations always have just a responsibility to themselves to make money and to make profit. They don't have a responsibility to the human race. They only have to worry about their shareholders and what they can do in profits. So if profits and general welfare of humans don't coincide, if they clash, then of course the corporation is going to have to side on the side of profits. So yes, 100% regulate businesses. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. Agree, disagree. I'm like right in the middle on it. I think that generally speaking, you'd have to have humans be like reasonable and fair and just, you know, in order to do that. But I think we all agree with this to a certain extent. Like, you wouldn't expect someone in a wheelchair to work as hard as someone that has full range of motion with their body, but both of them still need food, right? So if you reject from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, right? If you reject that entirely, you strongly disagree with it, you have to be in favor of eugenics for disability, right? Like, disabled people have to be literally useless in your mind, right? Because otherwise you would be agreeing that some people have to be taken care of. And that's it. If you're able to produce more, you should, right? And if you're not able to, someone should help you. That's generally the concept behind having power and using power responsibly. You know, we have like the Spider-Man quote, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. But a lot of people say they disagree with this statement, even though they like love the Spider-Man movie, you know? And that's the central thesis of it. You have power. With that power, you have to use it properly. And I think that's what this idea, of course, it's Marx, but that idea, and it might not actually, it might be Lenin, but I think it's Marx. I don't know, man. I've only read Capital, okay? Well, and Socialism, Scientific, and Utopia, as far as that goes. I haven't actually read Lenin. I've only read Marx and Engels, so I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, this idea is generally a good thing, and we all generally agree with it. We just don't like the idea of it sometimes being applied in like heavy economic sentences. So the freer the market, the freer the people. Oh yeah, baby, that's true. That's true. That's why slavery never existed in free market systems. No, absolutely not. There's just so much wrong with that statement. Absolutely, just that's such a bad thing to say. So take the previous example, the prior example, mix them together. So this one, because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. So again, the way it works, and I've heard, I kid you not, I've heard the sentiment I'm about to give you from not just rich people, but from working class Joes too, that who cares what'll happen to the planet? I won't be here anyway. I don't care about climate change. I'm not even gonna be around for it. Okay. Yeah, thanks, bud. And because we know corporations are run by people that fundamentally don't give a shit, generally speaking, they just let the climate go to shit because they have the money and power to make sure they stay insulated. They'll always be able to afford air conditioners. They'll always be able to afford a nice, big, sturdy house with a good security system, maybe even like a private military if it came down to it. So they're not worried about it. So when we talk about freedom in this situation, the freer the market, the freer the people, if we allowed the markets to just flood everything with huge amounts of carbon, sure, people can trade things or whatever, but now all of a sudden you can't live outside. You have to stay inside your house or you walk outside and die, unless you're rich enough to have air purification around. So that in and of itself, I don't think anybody would be willing to say that you can buy whatever you want or whatever. There's no regulations, but also you can't walk outside or you will die. I don't think that's a situation where people are free. You may disagree with me, but I think you're a fucking soup brain dipshit. So, moving on. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now bottled, branded consumer product. As silly as I'm going on this like fucking socialist tirade here, I actually don't mind the idea that it is that way. The thing that I mind is that you still have to pay the city like for your water, and it's not just taken out of taxes. The fact that there are municipal water systems that are privately owned, that's the problem. So I mean, I don't think it's a sad reflection on our society that it is a consumer product, that it's a commodity, if you will. But generally speaking, I mean, it's not good if people can't get water. And we have that. You know, Flint, Michigan, for example. You know, look at the people there, like having to ship water in, you know, from different areas and stuff to try and like stay alive. That's rough, you know. And that, I think, is the part that's sadder. Not that like you can buy bottled water. I think the option to have bottled water is fine. It's the lack of an option to have free tap water that's bad. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Generally, I agree with that, but again, that's like, the issue is that a lot of these things I agree with morally, but are unattainable right now in a social setting, right? Like, when we say bought and sold, like, bought and sold is fine, and this is the issue. There's an ambiguity of language here. A commodity, right? Something that is commodified, according to the old school philosophers like Marx, isn't just something that you can buy or sell. It's something that you're using explicitly for the gaining of capital, right? So if I own my home, I own my home, okay? Since I own my home, in theory, I can sell it. And now it is gone. I've taken my money and I can go use that money to buy something else, right? So that would be nice, right? But if I were to buy the house and live here forever, that would be a good thing. That would not be a commodified house. Or if I were to sell it because I wanted to move somewhere else, not a commodified house. However, if I bought the house cheap, renovated, resold it for a higher price, that's commodification, right? Because what's happening there is I'm not buying the house to use the house. I'm buying the house to sell the house, right? I'm not looking for an exchange from money to a commodity. I'm looking for an exchange from money to money, right? I'm trying to take some money and make more money with that previous money. I'm not looking to have a commodity at the end. I don't want an actual object. I want money. So generally, it'd be nice if we could just go around, and if nobody's living in a space, you could just walk up and live there. That would be nice. It's just not viable in our system, and that makes sense. There's a lot of people on the planet. You have to have personal property. Well, personal property, not private property. Big distinction, but we might get to that later. But I'm gonna agree slightly, okay? It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to their society. Strongly agree. People that just use the stock market to get famous or to get rich, you know, you have like the FTX stuff. Generally, that's bad. Protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Yeah, sometimes, you know, like I understand we live in a global economy, right? That's important. I think there should be a global economy. We should all have like a single unifying dollar instead of having like the US dollar and, you know, whatever China's using right now. I know Japan is still yen, right? I haven't been to Japan, but I'm pretty sure it's still yen. You have like, you know, the euro, for example, and you can see that like when we conglomerate, we have better economies. You can see that with like the European Union with the euro. Before there were all these different currencies. Now we have one currency, right? And well, in Europe, not me. I live in America, okay? But Europe has one currency and it's doing better, right? It's doing better. So generally speaking, you don't need protectionism, but this sometimes necessary. Yeah, sometimes it is. So I'm going to agree, right? Slightly. Generally, protectionism isn't important. I think globalizing is a good thing. We live on a globe. Sorry, flat earthers. Great apologies for me to break that to you. But we live on a globe, right? So why not use it that way? The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. You believe that? You're a fucking ghoul, okay? You're a ghoul. However, it is, if you're, well, let me rephrase it. If you believe that prescriptively, if you believe that as a normative thing, that that's how it should be, you are a piece of shit, right? But if you believe that it is this way only, see how it says should here? But if it says the only social responsibility of a company is, that would be a descriptive claim, and that would be true. But it shouldn't be. You should, as a company, have a responsibility to your shareholders to not lie to them, to deliver at least an equivalence on their investment, right? And you should be taking care of your employees, making sure they can afford to live, they have good healthcare, they're well taken care of, well fed, and you should make sure that you're not destroying the planet around you. And those are that's basically the end, right? Don't lie to your shareholders, consumers, take care of your employees, and don't destroy the earth. And I think that's pretty easy. The rich are too highly taxed. Yeah, no, they're doing all right. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of medical care. Strongly disagree with that. That's like, again, literal ghoul shit. That's saying that like if you're poor, eat shit and die slow. Like that is what it says there. If you are poor, eat shit and die slow. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Strongly agree. I think that if you do something particularly egregious, I think you should even be able to be nationalized for a while. If you're lying to the public like that, yeah, get fucked, loser. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. No? What? This is a fucking wild statement, okay? So like, I don't like multinational corporations, okay? I don't like monopolies, all right? And you do need restrictions. But a genuinely free market would have none of that, and it would be a monopoly. That's the problem. Capitalism tends towards monopoly. That's just how it works, right? Because you're always trying to take that money and make money with that money. And if you can corner the market in one place, eventually you're going to want to branch out. And then you corner another market, and then you corner another market. You can see it now with like Disney and Fox have been put together. I think Fox just bought CNN, and you see these mergers happen. I actually was at I was working at Cabela's in their distribution center when they merged with Bass Pro. Now they're one company. So it always tends towards monopolization. It's normal, happens, right? So like a free market is a monopoly controlled by multinational corporations. That is a free market. If you want a free market, that's what you get. But I think what it's trying to get across here is that you need restrictions on multinationals and try to keep them to create monopolies. So I'm going to strongly agree that the market needs restrictions here. That's what I'm going to say, okay? But a free market would not be that. It would be just them having the monopolies. Look at some of your personal social values. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be illegal. Strongly disagree. Me personally, I think that there are moral implications. Like, you should avoid an abortion if at all possible, and most humans do, but I don't think it's anybody's right to tell you otherwise. If you want to jump down the stairs, you can do that, and no one can tell you otherwise, right? So why not, instead of having women jump down the stairs or get punched in the gut or whatever in order to have an abortion, why not make sure that it is legal and safe and done by a medical professional, right? Seems straightforward to me. All authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. Always question. Now, it doesn't mean you can't accept, right? This is the key distinction here. All authority needs to be questioned, but if it is questioned and it passes the test, it should be accepted. That's the key distinction between someone like me and flat earthers, for example. They say, well, you're just listening to, usually Jews, not even gonna lie, you're just listening to them tell you all the propaganda about how the earth is round, you globe head. Like, no, I questioned it. They answered all of my questions. I asked more questions. They answered all of those questions. All right, that's fine. So, always question authority. Accept it when it's proven to be okay, right? Like, I'm not a microbiologist. I will trust the authority of people who have dedicated their lives to microbiology when they tell me, like, a vaccine works, right? Easy enough. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Strongly disagree. I think that's fucking stupid, okay? Follow me on this one, all right? There are very few things in the world that accomplish anything, right? Like, I personally, when we come to like punishment, I don't even believe free will exists, right? So for me to just smash somebody because they smashed you is like a visceral feeling for us. It's not something reasonable or rational that we've thought through. It's like some dumb ooga brain shit for us, right? If you look at, take something like I don't know, let's say someone stole, I don't know, we'll pick something distinct like a TV, all right? Someone stole a TV, okay? Let's say someone broke into my house and stole my TV, okay? Now, there are things I can do. I can go steal their TV. I can go take the exact punishment back out on them, or I could demand that I get my TV back and I get an apology. And that's fine with me. Sorry, man, I shouldn't have done it. Here it is. It's fine. Here's like $5 or whatever for me fucking breaking into your house. All right, I'm sorry. And I'll be like, all right, don't fucking do it again, asshole. Get out of here. And then that'll be it, right? Whereas, like, if we use retribution as our primary way of going on, I would have to like go steal that dude's TV, break into his house when he's not home and steal his TV. He probably doesn't even have a TV. If he broke into my house, he's probably trying to sell it for something. And this is like just a general misunderstanding of why crimes happen and how they happen. And that's my problem with like an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Retribution generally doesn't accomplish much, and I honestly might have to do like a full video on retribution, because yeah, in fact, I'm gonna write that down somewhere. Nah, not right now, but retribution is bad, doesn't work. Okay, taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Strongly disagree. I think it's important for us to keep at least a couple cultural centers around. Like, people don't want to go to museums as much. I get it. Now we have like, I literally have screens in front of me right now. You know, I can look anything up at any time. But being able to see these things in person is just hugely, hugely important. Being able to remember and keep these things, especially for something like archaeology, you know, where you get to go see like dinosaur fossils or zoos, things like that. These cultural things where we get to go see the culmination of our work as a society, as like a species on the planet. I think that's important. And I think that if they want to take $10 a month from me and it keeps all of the museums in the country open, I'm okay with that. That's fine. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Man, that's a tough one for a lot of people. I personally think that they should generally make it compulsory, but the issue is that our current schooling system is jacked, right? If we fixed our schooling system to where it was more capable of producing critical thinking and engaging with more people, if we had more teachers per kid, things like that, if we were able to do that, then I think that it's reasonable to make attendance to a school compulsory. I think that's fine. The big issue a lot of people have with this is that our current system's broken, so they point to that as a source of trauma in their lives. And I think that that's kind of silly if you're looking at the statement in a vacuum. But it's hard as humans to, some would say, like some philosophers would say, it's fucking impossible even for us to dissociate ourselves from our current experiences. So I get it, but I'm gonna disagree. I think it's fine. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different sorts of people should keep to their own kind. That statement hurts me to say out loud. Strongly disagree. I think we all can understand that one. That's pretty straightforward. Unless you're a Nazi. If you're watching me and you're like a straight up Nazi, like, hi, why don't you come on and yell a bit with me? We can talk back and forth about how like you're probably dumb and white. That'd be funny, right? Good parents sometimes have to spank their children. Strongly disagree. If you're a good parent, you don't have to do fucking anything to get your kid to do whatever, right? You use your words and that's it. Good parents are able to raise their kids without ever punishing them. If you're a good parent, you don't have to do anything. You know what to do and you do it, right? Now, I don't think that spanking your kids is some immoral crime or whatever. I don't think that like it strongly damages your children to have a little slap on the butt or whatever. You know, it happened to me as a kid. I just think that it's ineffective. Most of the time, it just doesn't work. And I think that if you have to spank your kid, you are not doing it correctly, right? Like, you should fucking try again. No? It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. I agree, it is natural for them to, but if you're a good parent, you should always try and figure those things out. You should know your kid very well. You guys should be like fucking best friends. And if you're not, then you're neglecting those needs of that kid, right? Allow them to go where they want, right? Whenever they want, but make sure they know that it's There's always open communication. And when I say that, I mean like teenagers. I'm not saying like 5-year-olds, you know? But if you've got a teenager and they want to like go hang out with their friends for a weekend or whatever, just stay in contact with them, let them go do it, experience it, right? But you have to make sure that they know that that line of communication is always there and that you're not going to judge them for the things they think, and you're going to listen to them and take them seriously. I think it's a big deal. But I do, again, think generally we like to keep secrets. Like, as humans, sometimes we're embarrassed of things, sometimes we don't want to talk about things, sometimes we feel like people treat us different if they learn something. So I mean, I agree, it is natural. Doesn't mean it's something we should encourage. Possessing marijuana for personal use should not be a criminal offense. Strongly agree with that. There's no reason, right? Alcohol's legal in this country. Tobacco's legal in this country. Why the fuck isn't weed legal? Like, less people die. Go find me a collision where someone died because someone was smoking weed. I bet you can find, like, one in the fucking world. Yeah, fatal collisions from like people drinking and driving is all the time, but like you will never hear, even in places where it's legal, of fatal collisions of people high on weed, right? And most of the time it's because you're able to recognize that you're too high to drive. I've been around people that, I don't smoke, right? I don't partake, okay? But I've been around people, you know, a huge part of the culture around me, and most of the time those people will be like, man, I'm too fucking high to drive right now. That's not a good idea. I shouldn't do it. But like, someone gets fucking blitzed, they're fucking lit on some fucking White Claws or some shit, you know? They will get in their car and they will confidently drive into a telephone pole. So, yeah, strongly agree that shouldn't be criminal. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Strongly disagree. It should be just to equip the kids for the future. I want them to be intelligent, capable, critically thinking agents that are able to do not just a job, not just, oh wow, I can engineer now, wowzers, because then we get into like this like asocial style of thinking, right? Or eusocial style of thinking, where like we start becoming like ants or bees, you know, and there's like a hive mind of people that will control like what it is that I mean, really it's just the market, you know, but like, let's say the market wants us to all be STEM and we all just go into STEM because we want jobs. Like, it feels like that's a way to kind of turn us into these worker bees instead of individuals that also work. I think it's important to work. I think it's important to, I guess I'll say labor. Your labor is an important thing, but what your labor goes to isn't something that the schools should determine for you. They should teach you how to figure out where you want your labor to go and give you the skills to go there with it. That seems pretty reasonable to me. It shouldn't be primarily to give you a job. It should be primarily to prepare you for being a good human, which does involve getting a job. It's just not the primary thing. People with serious inheritable disabilities should not be allowed to reproduce. Oh, fuck. Why do these hurt me so bad? No. If you have Down syndrome or autism or something, actually, I don't think autism is inheritable. So, no. But if you have, you know, Down syndrome or whatever your disability is, if you have something like that and it is generally seen as inheritable, you don't just get your right to exist as a human taken away from you. That seems pretty straightforward. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. Strongly disagree. Because when they say accept discipline, it's to take whatever people give you as discipline. And that's not the right way to look at things. In order to get a child to learn, right, you need to get them in a mindset that allows them to keep it. When we talk about discipline, it should only be self-discipline. That's the thing that's important. Telling someone that, listen, we have whims, we have flights of fancy, And if you can ignore some of those flights of fancy in the future, you will have a better time potentially. If you want to, I don't know, like let's say you want to take a test and study, you want to get a job as a lawyer, right? You have to take a test, right? You have to pass the bar. So instead of staying up all night playing video games, which is what you want to do, you should forego that and have the discipline, the self-discipline to make sure you study and get to bed at a good time, so when you wake up in the morning you can pass, right? That's the only way discipline is helpful, right? You can't use discipline to get a kid to learn. Most of the time they shut that shit the fuck out, and I can tell you that personally. I remember times where there are lessons I should have learned that I shut out and didn't learn until I was an adult because I was disciplined for it. I was hit for it, and it just doesn't work, right? Discipline should be seen only when we're talking about learning to discipline yourself, not having someone discipline you for. There are no savaged and civilized people. There are only different cultures. I mean, kinda. Nah, I'm gonna disagree with that. I think that, like, sacrificing humans is generally like a bad thing. So if a different culture existed and it was like, yeah, no, we just sacrifice our babies to Xenu or whatever, like, yeah, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no on that. That's a pretty savage culture. I don't think it's out of my depth to say that. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. Yes and no. Generally, I think that you should always get society's support regardless, so I'm going to disagree. But if you are fully capable of doing something, of working or something like that, generally you should you just, like, you should work, okay? You just should. So yeah. Sorry, I was getting a message. When you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. Disagree. Figure out what it is that's troubling you and work through it. You're going to be much better off if you confront all of your problems head on instead of, like, running away from them, generally. I think we all kind of get that. First generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new country. Strongly disagree. Strongly disagree. I think that no matter who you are, you can be integrated into a community. You just can. It's all about whether or not the community wants you there. You know, if, like, a black person comes into our neighborhood, which is almost entirely white, I think there might be, like, a black kid in all of my town. You know, like, we're white as fuck here, okay? And if a big family of black people moves into the area and they're from, I don't know, San Francisco or something, they just want a quiet little town to move into, I think that our ability to accept them is the only thing that determines whether or not they can properly integrate, right? If we're out here inviting them to barbecues, hanging out and talking to them, you know, they go to the community events and we're all hanging out, we treat them like normal people, then I think they'll integrate fine, right? But if we don't and we're like, I don't know, man, skin's kind of dark, I don't trust you, like, yeah, they're not going to integrate. And that's with anyone. That's why I picked, like, an American from, you know, San Francisco, because I think it would be the same with a German or with someone from New Zealand or someone from Zimbabwe. Doesn't matter. Wherever they're from, if they're taken into the community legitimately by the community, I think they'll integrate fine. What's good for the most successful corporations is always ultimately good for all of us. No? What? No. I think that one's an easy one. If you agree with that, I think you're a fucking asshat. Don't vote. No broadcasting institution, however independent its contents, should receive public funding. Strongly disagree. I think that's important. We need an objective, unbiased, like, broadcasting institution of some sort. I think it's important to have that, you know, like NPR or actually, and I don't know if NPR is still publicly funded, CBS or whatever, PBS, Public Broadcast Service, PBS, sorry, not CBS, fucking, they're super for profit. I don't even think they do news anymore. They're just like sitcoms and shit. So yeah, I think that like PBS is important. Things like that, public services are very important, because if we take out regulation, we remove all regulation, and people are just allowed to say whatever the fuck they want to the public, you can have someone unironically say that, like, the other day, President Joe Biden took his pants off and put his penis inside the mouth of a young 14-year-old girl. And you can say that, and no one can check you on it, right? No one can check it. You just have to believe it. It's true. Because if you own all of the broadcasting systems and you put that out there, no one's going to be able to fact check you on it. You own all the news. So having an unbiased news source is important, or at least one that's like as close to unbiased as possible. Always good to have a public broadcasting institution as well as for-profit ones. I think it's important because you can use them as yardsticks for what's true and what's not, right? But that's just me. And how you see the wider society. All right, we're on page 4. We're getting through this. Our civil liberties are being excessively curved in the name of counterterrorism. I agree with that. I don't think it's so much anymore, but they sure were way back in the day. You know, the Patriot Act still exists, but it doesn't feel like that. Maybe this is just like, you know, manufacturing consent here, and like I grew up in the system and now I feel fine with it or whatever. But I don't know. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. Well, like, I mean, objectively, that's true. Like, what? That's not one you can agree or disagree with. It's just a fact. Like, if there are any advantages at all to a one-party state, one of the advantages is that there are no arguments, there is no delay. You know, you can fucking fight it all the time, you can disagree with them, but it doesn't matter. So there is no delay. I don't know. I'm gonna disagree, because generally one-party systems are fucking awful. But I mean, that's just like, that is a correct that's a correct statement. That is a factually correct statement. There is nothing else you can say about that. Yeah, exactly. It can move straight off a cliff, but it's still moving. So that statement is just true. But I'm going to disagree with it. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers need to be worried. Strongly disagree with that. And if you don't think that that's a problem, why don't you go ask Google how much of your personal data they've already sold to other corporations? Because, yeah, a lot of that. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Generally, I disagree. I don't think the death penalty really accomplishes anything. I think we get the wrong person a lot of times, like a lot of times. And, like, it's not a good enough deterrent to stop people. People know the death penalty existed, and like they still murdered people. In fact, like the crime rates have gotten down since states started abolishing the death penalty. So there's no like tracking on crime and the death penalty being related in that way. So generally, I don't think we should have it, but it's not a big enough issue for me to really care about. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. No. No? Like, not at all. The only reason that happens even today is because there are people that are willing to do it, you know? That's it. But, all right, let them have it. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art. Disagree. The abstract art you're looking at represents something to someone, and therefore it matters. If like something doesn't represent anything at all to anyone, then yeah, it won't be considered art. But by this standard, like, No, I know what they're getting at. They're like, what about the toilet in the Louvre? Oh, fucking well, dude. Yeah. You can't give me, like, there are philosophers that have spent their entire existence trying to explain how objective art can be, and they all fucking failed. So, yeah, everything, literally everything is art to someone somewhere. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. No. What? No. It doesn't even work. Like, the whole point of punishment is to build a society where you no longer have to punish people. Like, right? Am I right there? That makes sense to me, at least. Like, the whole point of punishing someone, of doing some sort of punishment, of having a criminal system of some sort, should be to eventually get to a point where we no longer need a criminal system, right? We're trying to get a society that we don't have to criminalize. So why would we value punishment over rehabilitation? If we can get someone to be better than they were before, that should be the option. We shouldn't just be like, no, you're bad. You're bad. Bad people have bad things. No. It is a waste of time to try to rehabilitate some criminals. Well, there are some people that it could be a waste of time to try. I've seen studies that, and I don't know, this was when I was younger, but I've seen studies that show that, like, pedestry, you know, pedastry, like, it's, yeah, pedestry, right? That's having sex with people under the age of 18, you know, that's how we're going to put it. Those people have a hard time being rehabilitated. I read a study somewhere that said that. But I don't know. Generally speaking, I think pretty much all of them can. So I'm gonna disagree, but like slightly. Right, exactly. Like, you can't punish people and expect them to like the society that punished them. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. They will not respect that society. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. Strongly disagree. I think you need all of them in order to have, like, a society. I think it's important to have, like, the manufacturer and the business person and the writer and the artist. Like, otherwise we wouldn't get fucking anywhere, because architecture and blueprint design is part of art, not manufacturing, right? So you have to combine the two to make anything that a manufacturer can use. And if a manufacturer isn't making the tools that an artist or a writer would need, then there wouldn't be artists and writers. So it seems like you need all of them. Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess business people for now in the system we're in, but generally speaking, a manufacturer, a writer, and an artist, they feed into each other. You need all of them. Mothers may have career, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Yeah, baby, barefoot and pregnant. Women don't have rights. What are we talking about here? Yeah, they can go do their thing, but come on. You got to come back and record the game, right? Fucking stupid. No. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. The plant genetic... What the fuck does that mean? The plant genetic resources of developing countries. They, like, are you talking about like Monsanto and shit like that? Like, is that the point here, that they're like taking the like actual genetic code of plants to like make better plants? Or are you talking about how like a US company will like invade places like Colombia and make them make our fucking coffee for us? Or like, what? I mean, I'll agree, but that's a really, I think that sentence needs restated. That's a really fucking weird way to say what they said. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Strongly disagree. I don't think it's immature to question and move forward with a society, whether it's good or not. The establishment isn't good by default, and you don't just become mature and accept the establishment. The important part of maturity is being able to recognize whether the establishment is just or not. Sometimes it is. right? Sometimes the establishment, the way it is a good system. And maturity is being able to accept when it is, but not just wholeheartedly take it as good if it's not, right? We have to be critical all the time of these things. And if it passes the test, we accept it. And if it fails the test, we reject it. That's maturity. All right. You got through that okay. You'll find these propositions on religion a breeze. Yeah, probably. Astrology accurately explains many things. Yeah. Well, if if astrology doesn't work, then why is it that every Capricorn is born in January or February? Checkmate. You cannot be moral without being religious. Yeah, actually, I am an atheist and I am immoral in all ways. Charity is better than Social Security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. Again, no. What? No. I mean, you're not wrong. The stars in the sky do look a certain way. No, charity does not do a better job of, like, helping the disadvantaged. Like, that's not. No, we just have bad Social Security setups. Like, we just have a bad social safety net. Some people are naturally unlucky. I mean, it feels that way. I'm gonna agree with that. It feels like some people just naturally have like a bad time of things, you know? It is important that my child's school instills religious values. Nah, I'm all right. I'm okay without that. How about we just let, like, this is, you know, they talk about the rights of the parents and shit like that. Why don't you leave the school to just teach them like worldly things and you teach them religion, right? You teach them. Finally, a look at sex. That's what I've been waiting for this whole time, girl. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. All right. Get out of here. Sex outside marriage is usually immoral. Strongly agree. Nah, strongly disagree. Of course. That's dumb. It's important. Like, if you don't have sex with someone before you marry them, you're stuck having sex with that person or not having sex for the rest of your life. Or you get divorced. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree. Yeah. I don't understand, like, why would you rather have a kid go to, like, a home that is dysfunctional just because there's, like, a dick and a vagina instead of two dicks, you know? Yeah, exactly. Like, I never went to a religious school, so I'm lucky on that one, but yeah, like, you learn that the preacher's kind of a shithead a lot of the time, like, but, like, what are they teaching you for real, you know? Don't instill fucking religious values into my kids. I'm gonna teach them that if I want. Pornography depicting consenting adults should be legal for the adult population. I think that's just generally an agreeable statement. You know what I mean? Like, if a bunch of adults film themselves doing a sex thing and other adults want to see adults that film themselves doing a sex thing, that seems pretty straightforward to me, right? Like, no one has a problem with movies just existing, so why would it be a different thing if movies exist but people don't have clothes on? You know? That seems pretty silly to me. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Strongly agree. Yes. As long as consent is there, as long as it exists, right? If we start, like, you know, people are doing some shady stuff in their rooms with some weird kink stuff, you know, then yeah, you know, if it's not consensual, they should step in. But as long as a bunch of adults giving consent, doing whatever the fuck they want, no big deal. No one can feel naturally homosexual. It's pushed by the media. Them at the media. Them with parentheses and the blue. Them. Yeah, no. Clearly people can feel homosexual. That's a thing that people feel all the time. That's normal. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. Nah, I don't think it's gone far enough. I want to see sex in the streets, baby. That's what I'm talking about. As long as you're attractive, you know what I mean? Like, we can't have these fugly people like me, or, you know, some other people. Nah, of course, I'm fucking around, all right? But yeah, I agree. It's fine what we've done. It's fine. So I'm going to strongly disagree with that. I think openness about sex is, like, important generally. I think that having a society that understands what sex is and how it should work leads to less abuse, not more abuse. But you know, figure it out. All right, now let's see where I stand. Let's see what this thing tells me. I have to vote this way now. That's what I was told. Now that I've taken the test, if I don't vote in accordance, I'll get shot by the CIA. I'm pretty sure is what they said. So let's see. What does it say? Oh, it's explaining it. It's explaining it. Okay. Let's read their explanation, see what we agree with. It's certainly fine for discussing economics, but to this day is still widely and wrong. Oh, okay. The starting point of the original political compass in 2001 was when we recognized the inadequacies of the standard political measure, left and right. Fair enough. Yeah. Certainly fine for discussing economics, but to this day still widely and wrongly used to describe social attitudes. France's National Front, for example, is popularly described as far right, yet its economic policies have sometimes been to the left or even the French Socialist Party. The party's real extremism is in its social attitudes. That's why we added a social scale. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Generally speaking. So, authoritarian left, authoritarian right, libertarian left, libertarian right. If you want to call that a thing. Nevertheless, the more nationalistic and authoritarian a party or an individual is, the more right-wing they're still labeled. This, of course, is absurd. Taken to its logical conclusion, it means that the further left the country sits, the more socially liberal its attitudes are. On that basis, North Korea must be a shining model of human rights and social freedoms. I don't think fucking North Korea counts as left in any fucking manner. I don't understand where that... Okay. No, North Korea is not left-wing. They are right-wing as fuck in all ways. They are an authoritarian dictatorship where there's state capitalism. Like, that's not left-leaning, buddy. Having capitalist firms, but they all answer to the state is not... That's not left-leaning. That's not a leftist idea. There's still markets in that system. That's the problem. Conversely, a country may be very right-wing, i.e. libertarian, in its economics, and be authoritarian at the same time. Singapore is a perfect example. Conversely, a country can be right-wing, also known as libertarian. And no, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. That's okay. All right. The Index of Economic Freedom produced by the Wall Street Journal and the conservative Heritage Foundation hails Singapore as the economically freest nation on earth in 2021. On the social scale, however, it's a very different story. Human Rights Watch details its reasoning, finding Singapore a deeply authoritarian state. Looking at a few interesting nations on this chart: Uruguay, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, China, North Korea. Again, no. The left-leaning, like, economically speaking, we're left-leaning. Yeah, no, you're fucking not. Get out of here. North Korea is not a left-leaning country. Neither is China. Having one party that controls the businesses does not mean that the workers own things. That's not how that works. Uruguay is rated the world's 44th most free country and a leading Latin American light in social freedoms, from gay and lesbian rights to legislation of cannabis. Switzerland also has a high rating as a libertarian economy, while at the same time providing a wide range of social welfare programs with an E? Where the fuck is this from that they put in E in programs? Get out of here. In common with the Nordic states and a number of other Western countries. With the exception of its Hong Kong region, China maintains a strong economic controls, though fewer than those associated with a more orthodox ruling communist party. I like that they had to put communist in quotation marks there. I think it's because they realized that, like, if you actually read, like, a communist, like, if you read, like, Marx or Lenin, like, China doesn't qualify according to them. They still have classes and states. So, like, yeah, that's not communism. I'm sorry, my guy. Sucks to suck. In recent years, China has shifted closer to the totally repressive social climate of North Korea, where the economy is under the absolute control of the state. That is not left. That is not left leaning. That is authoritarian. Like that. It's not left. That's not to the left. It's just not. Saudi Arabia has veered further towards a libertarian economy in recent times, but with no real relaxation of its sweeping authoritarian powers. That's true. That's true. They realize that they can make buco dinero off of their ties with America, specifically because we buy their oil, you know? And we don't mind doing business with a theocracy. That's cool. All right, where'd it put me? Oh, it put me hardline left libertarian. Woo! Check me out. Boom. Claim my free political compass certificate. I love it. Woo! Does it show you like who else you might be like? No, it doesn't show you like doesn't show you where you might be like other people. It doesn't show you people that are like you. That's a shame. It should show me whether or not me and Bernie Sanders are fucking tight-knit bros. Nah, that's good. All right.